I still hear the laugh before I remember her face. It wasn't loud. It wasn't cruel on purpose. That made it worse. It was a quiet, careless laugh from the next table, followed by a sentence that wasn't meant for us but landed anyway. "She's a little old to be playing CEO, isn't she?" I froze. She didn't. She just stared at her coffee like it suddenly mattered more than anything else in the room. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. I had never planned to speak up. I had never planned to change anything. But what I said next changed everything. I'm not special. I don't come from money. I don't have some dramatic backstory that explains courage. I was just a junior analyst at a mid-sized company in London, trying to keep my head down and my bills paid. She was my CEO. Eleanor Hart. Most people at the company called her Ms. Hart. A few brave ones used Eleanor behind closed doors. I always stuck to ma'am when I first joined. Not because she demanded it. Because she carried herself in a way that made you want to stand straighter. She was in her early 50s. Sharp mind. Calm voice. No nonsense. And quietly lonely, though I didn't realize that at first. We met properly during a late-night project crunch. Everyone else had gone home. I was still at my desk, pretending not to be exhausted, when she walked past, stopped, and said, "You've been here too long. That's not sustainable." I shrugged. Deadlines don't really care about sustainability. She smiled then. Just a little. "Neither do people," she said. "But they should." That was the first crack in the wall. After that, she started asking my opinion in meetings. Nothing dramatic. Just small things. "What do you think? Does this make sense to you?" I told myself it was professional respect. Nothing more. But respect can grow into something dangerous if you're not careful. She wasn't perfect. She could be distant. Sometimes painfully so. She had a habit of retreating into silence when emotions showed up uninvited. And she carried herself like someone who'd learned, the hard way, that needing people came with a cost. I had my own flaws. I overthought everything. I assumed rejection before it happened. And I had a talent for falling for people who felt just out of reach. So of course, I fell for her. Not all at once. Slowly. In pieces. In the way she listened without interrupting. In the way she remembered small details about my life and brought them up weeks later. In the way her eyes softened when she talked about books she loved but rarely had time to read anymore. The cafe meeting started as work. Neutral ground. Strategy discussions. Financial projections. Laptops open between us like a safety barrier. Then one day, she closed hers and said, "Let's not talk about numbers for 10 minutes. I laughed. "Are you sure?" "I don't think the board would approve." "They don't need to know," she replied. That was the day I realized she trusted me. The cafe was quiet most afternoons. Brick walls. Soft music. A place where no one really paid attention. Or so we thought. We were sitting by the window that day. Rain tapping against the glass. She looked tired. More than usual. "Do you ever feel invisible?" she asked suddenly. The question caught me off guard. "Sometimes," I said. "Why?" She stirred her coffee slowly. You work your whole life to become someone people listen to. And one day, you realize they're listening less. Not because you're wrong. Just because you've aged. I didn't know what to say. So I said the truth. I listen. She looked at me then. Really looked at me. And for a second, the room felt smaller. That's when the laughter happened. 2 women at the next table. Younger. Stylish. Loud enough to be heard, quiet enough to pretend they weren't being rude. She must be someone's mum, one said. Or a consultant they haven't fired yet, the other replied. Then the sentence that broke the air between us. She's too old for that role. I felt heat rise up my neck. My hands curled into fists under the table. Eleanor didn't react the way I expected. She didn't argue. She didn't flinch. She just shrank. Not physically. Emotionally. Like she'd heard this before and decided it wasn't worth fighting anymore. She reached for her bag. "Let's go," she said quietly. That's when I stood up. I don't know where the courage came from. I just knew I couldn't let her walk out carrying that alone. I turned to the women and said, calmly, "You're right." They looked surprised. "She is older than you," I continued. "And that's exactly why she's the most capable person in this room." Silence. She built a company from nothing. She employs hundreds of people. She makes decisions you wouldn't survive for a day making. And she does it without needing your approval. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. If age scares you, it's because you don't understand what experience looks like. I turned back to Eleanor. "And if you ever forget who you are," I said, softer now, "I'll remind you." I didn't wait for applause. There wasn't any. I just picked up my coat and nodded toward the door. She followed me out into the rain. Outside, she stopped. Her hands were trembling. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Yes," I replied. "I did." She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. And maybe she was. The days after that were complicated. At work, nothing changed on paper. But everything felt different. She kept her distance. Professional. Polite. Too careful. I told myself it was for the best. That boundaries mattered. That what I felt didn't have a place in her life. But feelings don't disappear just because they're inconvenient. One evening, she asked me to stay after hours. Again. The office was quiet. City lights blinking through the windows. "You crossed a line," she said gently. "I know. And I should be angry. I know." She sighed. "But I'm not." That scared me more than anger ever could. "I've spent years convincing myself I don't need anyone," she continued. "That independence means isolation. And then you did that. In public. I couldn't watch them tear you down," I said. "Not when I know what you've survived." She looked away. "You don't know everything." "Then tell me," I said. She did. About the marriage that ended when her ambition outgrew his comfort. About the promotions she earned and the labels she was given. Cold. Difficult. Too much. About how aging in power meant becoming a target. "I'm tired," she admitted. "And I'm afraid." "Of what?" Of wanting something I can't have. My heart pounded. You don't get to decide that alone, I said. She stepped closer. Not touching. Just close enough to feel the tension. This can't be simple, she warned. I'm not asking for simple. The conflict didn't explode. It simmered. Whispers at work. Curious looks. The unspoken question of whether respect could coexist with desire. I doubted myself constantly. Wondered if I was naive. If I was risking everything for something fragile. She pulled away again. Afraid. Protecting both of us by hurting us a little. Until one night, she showed up at my door. No makeup. Coat thrown on in a hurry. Eyes red. I don't want to be brave anymore, she said. That was the climax. Not a kiss. Not a grand declaration. Just honesty. I let her in. We didn't fix everything. We didn't promise forever. We chose something quieter. Harder. Real. We chose to try. Now, when we sit in that same cafe, people still look. Some judge. Some don't care. But she sits taller. And I sit beside her. Not because I saved her. But because she finally let herself be seen. If you liked this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks.